I'd like to introduce you to Tacy Trowbridge, who's going to talk to us about gamifying learning at Adobe. Make her feel welcome.
Thank you. I'm really glad to have a chance to talk with you all, and I think education is probably the most interesting place to be, so I'm glad to see lots of you here, even though it's quite warm in the room. My name is Tacy Trowbridge. I head up the education programs team at Adobe, and essentially what my team does is work to engage and inspire students, educators, and institutions around the world. We create and provide the ecosystem that really supports the use of Adobe tools. So we create curriculum and professional development, we run certification programs, and we're really interested in gamification and the ways in which we can use that to help accomplish some of our goals. So that's what I'm going to talk to you all about today. And once we get things up and running here, go. All right. So I had a humbling experience earlier this week. I don't know if any of you have seen the documentary that's out now called Revolutionary Activists. But we had two students who are part of this documentary come and speak to us at Adobe about their work. And they are activists. That's the way they describe themselves. They live in a slum outside of Calcutta and are really working to change some pretty substantial things about their neighborhood. They don't have drinking water. So they want to make sure that they've got a tap. They need to advocate for that from the government. The girls are getting married young, and they want to make sure that girls are able to stay in school. So they're trying to solve some really serious problems, and they're 11 years old, which is kind of impressive. One of the ways in which they're doing that is using digital media to tell their story, not just to explain the situation, what's happening in their neighborhood, to gain a broader audience, but also to make change. And I think what's humbling to me is it makes me think about what my job is differently. That part of my role is to make it easy for them to do the really hard work, to change these substantial problems, to make a real difference in the world. And so when we work on supporting creativity, supporting students, helping them find a voice, that can have a huge impact. And so I think that was a humbling experience about where we want to go. Adobe as a company believes that not only can creativity change the world, it is in fact the only way to change the world. We know our tools aren't going to change the world. It's really the people who are using them and the kinds of things they're doing with our tools. So I think for us, as we look at the ways in which we want to support creativity and creation, we want to engage with people like these 11-year-olds who are doing amazing work. So I know after lunch, warm room, I'm going to ask you to actually stand up right now. So hold on a second. I'll ask a series of questions. The first question is, glad to see you right there. The first question is, how kind of digital media in the last week? How many of you have consumed digital media in the last week? You've watched something, you've seen something, stand up. Okay, stay standing if you've shared that, if you've shared some sort of digital media with other folks this week. Okay. If you created something. Now stay standing if you shared something that you created this week. Okay, thank you. You can all sit down again. What I wanted to think a little bit about the role of creation these days, and think about what this room might have looked like 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago if I'd asked those same questions. Think about what a room full of students would look like if I'd asked those questions. And I think this has really some interesting implications about what tomorrow looks like, and the way in which we need to prepare students for the future. So we want students to be creators and not just consumers of digital content. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be consumers. I think that's part of the way you learn to create. You look at what other people are doing, you learn from it, you decide that you discover things you like, things you don't like. But we want to really empower students to be creators. So what I'm doing here is really telling you what's the problem we're trying to solve with gamification. Our broad goal is that we want students to be creators. And gamification is the strategy that we can use to help students become creators of digital media. So first thing we did was define what we're trying to solve. We want students to be creators. The second thing we did was really some research into trying to figure out who are our students. What are the things that engage them? What are the things that inspire them? Adobe tools, as you can imagine, professional level tools, they're used a lot in high school classrooms and in universities. And so that's the student audience that we're talking about. Although humbled to realize that there are these 11-year-olds who are using our tools, and we need to make sure that they are prepared and ready as well. So what inspires students? Probably no big surprises here. They're looking for real-world relevance. They are, most of them, looking forward to a job market that's tight, where they don't know quite what their future holds, and they want to make sure that they have skills that are going to make them stand out and that will be relevant when they enter the job market. Students are also inspired by what they see around them. So they're consuming content. They want to create things like that. They often start with the question, how did you do that? Because that's something that I want to do as well. I think as they look at their world, pop culture is digital and it's visual. And as we look at the way the world is going, I think being able to participate in that is incredibly important for students. Then how do students learn? Well, certainly lots of them go to class. They learn in school. But they also learn by just trying something out. They're really willing to dive into some pretty difficult software and try things. What we also discovered is that if they can't get what they need right away, they are gone. They are on to the next. And so that's the challenge for us. If you think about our tools, which are pretty hard to use, students come in, they've got a blank screen. How do they figure out what to do? And if they can't figure that out right away, we lose them. They're gone. Students also learn informally. They go to YouTube and look for somebody's video. They ask the person next to them who's done something cool. They work with their social network to figure out how to engage and learn. Then what engages them long term? Again, probably no surprises for you all. It's relevance, it's social, it's collaborative, competition, all of the things that we've been talking about this week, and continue to engage students. So I'm going to share with you first a marketing campaign that we did. There's a little bit of a learning component to this, but it was primarily around, did any of you see this when it was running? All right. So this was a campaign called Real or Fake, and it was very simple. We used some basic gamification strategies here. We'd serve up 5 images and ask students, real or fake? What do you think? They'd get a score at the end. There's discussion boards where people were really active in terms of arguing about whether a photograph really was real or fake. Talking about the different techniques that folks used. We had some real success with this, and it was a campaign that ran globally. I think some of what we saw was a 700% increase in the social components of this, just compared to a regular campaign that we would run. It was a 737% increase in terms of the engagement. So when someone came to a page and they actually clicked on something and engaged. We ran it over a series of 5 weeks and did a number of different 5-week segments. 1 in 3 students came back. So we'll do a quick test just to show you what it looks like here. Okay, so this is called How Now, Brown Car. How many people think this is real? And how many people think it's fake? Okay, a bunch of undecided folks in the room. So this was fake. Part of what happened once you made a decision, real or fake, and the idea was that it's easy to be fooled through these photographs, is there's that see how button. And so there's a tutorial associated with this that would help someone learn how to do this. So this is a fake image. How did this person get cow skin on a car? They took 2 photographs, brought them together. 50% of the folks who participated in this clicked on that see how button. Now that's what I'm interested in. I'm an educator. I want to know how people learn. How do we help people learn? And that we can inspire them, create enough questions so that someone wants to know how something was done, I think is pretty interesting. This campaign, we worked on Traction, a San Francisco-based ad agency. It won an Addy. It is part of Facebook Social, so it was really well received within industry. But we also had huge responses from the students who wanted more of these, wanted to continue to engage. It was a really successful campaign for us. What I wanted to spend most of the time talking about today is LevelUp. And LevelUp, we partnered with Bunchball to create this. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, Bunchball is running a contest, surprise, surprise, for folks who tweet using the hashtag Bunchball and Gmail, or not Gmail, hashtag GSummit. You can win an iBook Mini. So tweet something meaningful. That's what they're looking for. But they were the partners we worked with to create LevelUp. And this was a game that was designed to solve that blank screen problem, to help a student understand how to get started in Photoshop. So instead of coming in and having to figure out what do I want to do, we created a game that would exist as an extension within the software. So when you launch Photoshop, you could launch an extension, and that would start this game. It starts with a series of missions. And let me give you, I'm just going to play a little bit of it in the background so you can see what it looked like. Oops. see if I can make this work. Nope. All right, well, I'm going to talk you through it then in any case. Essentially, start with a mission. It would bring in photographs as well and help you engage around those photographs. So the first one was fixing red eye. You get a photograph and it walks you through the steps. If you need help, it points you through the software itself. So it'll tell you what to do next and show you what to do next. Once you've achieved that, oh good, professional help. It's always a good thing. Once you'd achieved that, then you have an opportunity to share that socially. You go on to the next mission. It was a really interesting way for to learn how to use some pretty complex software. I think some of the things that we found from this, the novices got started right away. It was easier for them to understand what the realm of possibility was, and basically what's the language of the software. How do you engage with it? For experts, what we found is that they discovered new work paths that they hadn't seen before, that they were more efficient because they saw a different way to do something. They used new tools. We did a research study around this where we looked at how people used Photoshop before they used LevelUp and then after LevelUp, and they used it 15% more. They also used different tools. All of them used tools that they hadn't used in their previous uses of Photoshop. And so I think for me, that's really interesting. I want people to be able to understand the breadth of a product that they're working with and to be able to use it in ways that are creative and helps them solve problems. LevelUp is something that has continued to run within Photoshop. As we think about where we're going with this, Adobe, as you may know, is moving into the cloud. We are releasing our software through the cloud and have established the Creative Cloud, a really dynamic place for folks to engage and see inspirational examples, work with each other, storage, all sorts of different things. I'm really interested in it as a place for learning. So how can we make learning compelling? How can we make learning compelling across our products? And so I think the LevelUp experiment has been one that has worked really well for us and one that we would like to continue. We've also recently run something, a collective art project. And this doesn't have a lot of gamification aspects to it, but it's an area that I really want to explore. This was launched with a number of top artists from around the world. They started a project, and to participate, you had to register, apply, create an artwork, and you were given a specific time window to do that. You could scribble, you could create art in any way you wanted to. And that's being used in an exhibition that's traveling around the world. It'll launch at Max in 2 weeks in Los Angeles at Adobe Max. Really excited by the results of this, to see professionals and amateurs engaging together around the process of creation. I think this is a way in which I would love to continue to do some work and exploration as to how we can use this idea of collective collaboration and creation to engage with our audience. Would be really exciting to me. So some of the things I wanted to share with you all, just some free advice, take it or leave it. So the first is let your goals and your audience drive the work. That if it doesn't work for them, then it's a nice exercise for you. Incorporate fun, emotion, and beauty. And I think those three components have been really critical to us as we think about each project. How successful have we been in incorporating those different elements? How can we do a better job of that? And then finally, to both reflect, so think about what worked, what didn't work, and then plan forward. For us, as we've engaged in gamification, we've tried some quick and easy things like the Real Fake campaign. LevelUp is certainly a more complex product and project, one that we want to continue, but it takes a lot of work to make that happen. And as we look forward, I think some of the things that I want to make sure happens is that we engage with folks broadly, internally, and then we create things that are really meaningful for our customers. Some of the internal challenges you can probably imagine. There are a number of folks at Adobe who are really passionate about gamification and various ways in which we can use it, and they're from across the company. It's been great to work with those folks, but I want to see ways in which we can embed this broadly across the products, and so I need buy-in from a broader set of audience within the company. So that's one challenge for us, is to figure out how do we do that? How do we get the rest of the organization to see the value of the work that we've done so far and to design products that will work well and so that we can really leverage some of the things that we've been able to do with Photoshop. I think some of the other challenges are continuing to work with an audience that changes all the time. And so we may have found the answer for the last 5 minutes, but what's needed in the next 10 minutes is going to be different. And so we need to do that process of understanding our audience again and again to be sure that what we're creating is really engaging them in the right kinds of ways and inspiring them in the right kinds of ways. And then finally, I think as we move to the cloud, we have this tremendous this opportunity to engage differently. And I think there's an imperative for Adobe if we are moving towards a subscription-based model rather than just perpetual licenses. How do we get people to renew a subscription? And that's an interesting problem, and I think one that some of our experimentation and gamification can potentially help us solve. So I present today in part because I want to share some of the things I'm excited about that we've been doing, but also because I'm really interested in what you all know about gamification, suggestions and ideas you have that may help us, and also potential partners as we are on a quest to try and help support creativity around the world. We want to make sure that students have an opportunity to really express themselves. That's obviously not work we do alone, but we do in partnership with lots of amazing folks around the world. So I want to invite you to join us if you're interested. I'd love your feedback and thoughts. Thank you very much.